Welcome to the Ruby Hour, a podcast produced by our company, Ruby Riot Creatives. We specialize in video production and content marketing, and we're based in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm Shelby Ring.
And I'm Madeline Rager.
This podcast is devoted to interviewing extraordinary people doing extraordinary things and nuggets of wisdom that they've learned along their journey. Also, just want to give you a heads up, we have potty mouths and we're talking about inappropriate things. Thank you so much for joining us for the Ruby Hour. I am your host, Shelby Ring. I am here with the amazing Haley Kelly. Haley is an amazing wedding planner here in town in Charleston. Here's her quick blurb just so you can get the who, what, where, when, and why. She's awesome. So Haley is the owner of Haley Kelly Events based here in Charleston that specializes in wedding planning. When Haley isn't behind her computer dreaming up wedding design or on the phone with vendors discussing logistics, you can find her and her husband at Graft. If you've never been there, it's freaking awesome, with a glass of wine in hand at Orange Theory or with her two kiddos at the beach at Sullivan's. Her work has been published in Martha Stewart Weddings, Ruffled, and Charleston Weddings. Haley, thank you so much for taking the time to come, hang out, talk some shop. Oh my gosh. So let's see, are you from Charleston?
No, originally from Anderson, South Carolina, so in the upstate, but after I graduated college, I moved down here immediately, so I've been here for 10 years now.
Okay, awesome. And so was your trajectory, did you always know you wanted to go into planning? How did you stumble upon being in the role you're in today?
Yeah, so I realized my freshman or sophomore year in college that I wanted to be in events, and I took 3 years and did 3 different internships in nonprofit, in corporate, and then in weddings. And my wedding internship was in San Francisco for a summer, so it was easy to kind of fall in love with weddings. So really what got it started is I'm not a school person. I don't love classes. I don't love tests. And but I love being involved. I was vice president of my sorority. I was student body president. So I really quickly realized that I wanted to do something around people. My cousin's wife actually was in hotel events, and when she started telling me about that, I was like, events, like you can make money doing events. And that's when I really started thinking about it and kicked off those internships to figure out what I liked.
Oh, that is so cool. Did you have any particular moments when you were in San Francisco, like any cool events that still stand out to you to this day?
Yeah, so one we did at the Museum of Modern Art, I believe, and during the event they were having a Chihuly showcase.
Oh, the glass.
Yeah, with the big starburst. And from that moment, it was really cool. The person who I worked for, they didn't know that Chihuly was going to be there because the installations changed out every few months. And so the big like yellow starburst was in the background of the ceremony. And just kind of dealing with that and seeing all of that go down the week of, figuring out how we were going to change the angles of the ceremony, and then embracing the Chihuly installation was part of like, I loved like that stress and getting through it and the clients being so happy. So yeah,
that would be like bucket list status to be able to like document. That sounds insane. Oh my gosh. So paint me a picture of, all right, you got how many little ones?
2.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are their ages right now?
Older girl 3.
Okay.
Younger boy 20 months.
Okay.
So they're exactly 18 months apart.
Oh, that's perfect. How do you balance, like, what's your world look like from having babies into like balancing all of it and still having a thriving business?
Yeah, that's hard. So I am an only child. My husband's an only child. So having more than one kid was like a big adjustment for us. Having kids in general is an adjustment. But before I had kids, I could leave the house without any questions. We could go on a date night. I could sleep in. So a lot of big changes. Now I don't get as much sleep, and I wonder where all the hours go in the day, even though I'm up from 6 a.m. until midnight most days. So, so yeah, it's been hard, but I think after having my second, I realized like I needed to put myself first and make sure that I was happy. And so, I found Orange Theory, and that was great. So, today, for example, I was up at 5:45. I went to Orange Theory at 6:15. I was back at home. My husband was getting the kids up. He then left. I took the kids to school, came home and showered, got to my office for a couple of hours. Now I'm here. then I go pick up my kids. So it's just,
Yeah.
it's a rush every day, and it's also kind of Groundhog Day, the same thing every day.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's like when I hear, like, I don't have any babies yet,
Yeah.
but to hear friends that are balancing all the moving parts, it's like you were like a conductor of a symphony to
Yeah.
just like keep your world in check.
Yeah.
That's like crazy. How has that shifted with with managing clients and doing wedding days, and like you're thinking of all of these details that go into these weddings and balancing the details of your personal life, like
Yeah.
how does that work for you?
I think when you have kids, for me, it has made me realize that I don't need to take on every client that calls me. And it's more about quality, making sure that relationship is the right fit for me, and clients that respect me having kids. Like now, if I have, I let my clients know this summer, I was like, I have 1 week left with my kids before school. Like I'm kind of be out of touch. All of their responses were like, oh my gosh, have so much fun. Where in the past, it may have been, okay, well, when will you be back? Or, so I think now I take on way less clients. I don't do a ton of weddings a year. And then also, like, when I have a event, my husband is so supportive. So, like, he knows that I am kind of unreachable for a few days, and he really takes on taking the kids to school and all of those things. We also are lucky, and both of our sets of parents live here, so they help a lot. So that's great. And I think just kind of what's the word, compartmentalizing things. So like when I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids. When I'm working, and really separating the two. So before I get to open my laptop, I'm mom. This morning I forgot I also went to the grocery store to get pumpkins for their class. It's 6:30. So so just kind of compartmentalizing the two.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that's like so inspiring to hear, of like finding the balance. And I love one of my girlfriends that, she's going 90 miles an hour in a given moment. And she's like, it's all about having quality moments more than just the sheer, like the mom guilt of like, oh, well, if I'm doing these things and then I have to shift gears, but being like, no, it's like being present. Like you're saying, compartmentalize. I'm with my kids. Okay, now I'm shifting gears. I'm with work.
Right.
That's awesome. Do you have any pets?
We do, but he's currently living with my parents. We're moving. He's on the back burner. He tore his ACL, and so now he's living the beach life out at Sullivan's and really enjoying it. But we'll get him back eventually.
He's on sabbatical.
Yes,
I love it. And so I love that your roots in the wedding industry and in the hospitality industry here in Charleston run deep. You have been in business in the wedding world since 2009. Like, that's awesome. What has your journey been like, shifting from, I'm hesitant of if we should say Patrick Property. Are you on good terms?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so with your roots running deep in Charleston, where you are, you worked with Patrick Properties all the way back in 2009. So you're like an OG in the field of like wedding vendors and knowing the different spaces here in town. Tell me about that journey of like finding your, that experience.
So I graduated college, and it was in 2009. No jobs were available anywhere. And so I actually went to culinary school and got a skills degree in culinary. And then I started as a server at Patrick Properties. Okay. So I was like, I'll do anything. Yeah. So I worked, weekends and events as a server, promoted to banquet captain, promoted to event manager fairly quickly, and then handled all of our staffing. And it was great. I think it was the best place for me to start in this industry. You learn everything about events, like the logistics, the rentals, what to do for weather, when do people have to move out of a tent due to lightning and wind, and just venue management in general, like how to lock up one of these old homes in Charleston. It's important. And just to be also respectful of the properties and the historic homes here. It was a great experience. I was working a lot there, a lot of events. I can't even do the math on how many, but sometimes 3 or 4 in a weekend. So it was grueling, after a few years there, but the best girls. I'm still friends with all of them there. And a lot of times there you're in events and then you kind of move on to sales, but I knew sales wasn't for me. Like, I didn't want to be in the sales side of things. For me, I personally like to see an event from the beginning all the way to the end. So if I don't get to see the sparkler exit, then it didn't happen for me. I want to see it all. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell me specifically, like, what's your sweet spot when it comes to the wedding planning services?
Like what I do for
yeah, because it's like, is it day of, month of, like,
Great question.
How do you like to be engaged with the client?
Yeah, so I do all full service, so hands-on from the very beginning. So they may have or may not have picked their venue even, or a date. So and I'm trying to do 6 to 8 weddings a year to keep it manageable so I can still have free time with my family and also spend the right amount of time on each client. So so I'm a control freak. I'm definitely type A, so I like to be involved in every single detail. So I mean, I need to know everything. It's kind of hard to explain, but like, if you were to hire a vendor without me knowing, that affects everything, you know? So if we have 2 guests drop out, that means we might be redoing table assignments, which changes the escort board, which then changes the seating chart that we give to the caterer. So I like to be involved and have a hand on every single thing.
Yeah. No, that's so awesome. And I mean, our wheelhouse being in wedding videography, there's nothing better than the control freak wedding planner, because it's like everyone gets to be at ease. It gives all of the guests, including the bride and the groom, permission, as well as the mother of the bride and, the mother of the groom, just everyone that wants it to be amazing and come together to know that they're in good hands and that all of those details are totally ironed out is like beautiful. And for us, we're able to know that if we're, eating, or if we take our moment to have our vendor meal, that like speeches aren't going to kick off. It's like so nice to be able to work with that like fluid energy that, like someone that does think of things start to finish. That's it's a love language to us. I love that one of the mantras or sort of a belief that you like to go by is this concept of, instead of fake it until you make it, be it until you are it.
Yes. So I heard that, funny enough, from a group in Charleston that I've gone to a few of their events called the Champagne Society. And it was started by a lady named Gervais, and she's awesome. And it is really for working women and women that have children that work. So it's awesome. And someone said, like, fake it till you make it. And then someone stood up and said that. And I was like, that makes total sense, because I'm not faking it. Like, I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I know what I'm doing. So until someone recognizes that I am it, I'm going to keep doing it. So so I thought that was
Be
really...
it until you are it.
Yes.
I love it. Step into it and wing. I mean, it's like, I think it's amazing that even through like our podcast development process, that seeing the different people that are like, yeah, I'm game. And even the fact of like, okay, you're signing up for like a 55-minute conversation. You don't know where it's going to go, but you're like, I'm going to be it until I am it. Like, I'm going to roll with it. And I feel like that is something that shows like that emotional resilience. And it's like, that's a must-have for being a wedding planner, where it's like, it's your job to like, you're steering this ship and like making sure that everything feels seamless, and you're doing it with a smile on your face, right?
Right. Always.
I love it. So one thing that you've mentioned is your happy place. Tell me about, what is your happy place here within driving distance?
Yes. So within driving distance, our favorite place to go is the Ritz-Carlton in Amelia Island. It is such a cool area of town. It's in Fernandina Beach, so it's like between Florida and Georgia, but this is on the Florida side. And it's, my husband's parents started going a long time ago for their honeymoon, or not their honeymoon, I'm sorry, their anniversary every year. And we were down for a friend's wedding on Cumberland Island, which is a really cool small island where JFK Jr. got married. And so then we went to the Ritz to meet them for dinner, and I was like, I'm never going anywhere else. And since then, when I was with the Charleston Bride, I had a wedding there at the Ritz, and it was amazing. They have always just treated us so well, and I feel like you're so taken care of. We went to our Babymoon there, which is a thing. Yeah, you get to pick where you're going and you get to like have fun. Yeah. So like when we arrived, they knew I was pregnant. My husband told them, you know, that I was craving, I think, watermelon at the time, and they had like iced watermelon in our room every night. They had like toys for our baby to take home. It was great. So anyways, they take really good care of us. Their spa is amazing. Now that I've been back, not on a baby moon, their drinks are amazing. So it's just one of my favorite places.
Oh my
for
gosh.
sure
Wait, what is a baby moon? I have never heard this until this moment. I need to know.
Yeah, so baby moon is where you kind of go off as a couple one last time before the baby's here. So for us, we wanted to go somewhere driving distance. We waited until we didn't get one for our second baby, I don't think.
Okay.
I don't remember. But with our first, we wanted to go somewhere driving distance, and he surprised me and took me there. So I didn't really know until we got on the interstate, I guess.
What?
So, yeah.
I want a baby moon.
Yeah.
I don't want to be babies coming up, but I want a baby moon. That is so awesome. Well, I know. I feel like Amelia Island has been something that I've heard on several people's radar, and so when you said that, I was like, I need to know more. Yeah. That is awesome. Tell me about that, you know, you've shared, okay, so, you know, you grew up, you were an only child, and you mentioned this thing of you can be assertive, but you hate conflict. And I love that because I feel like that's something for me. It's like to know, especially being a leader and having a business, there's those moments where we have to step up and it's not comfortable. So what are some things that in your own mental toolkit that have helped you step into that maybe easily, or like what are things that help you strengthen that muscle?
Yeah. So for me, I think one of the things I will say I'm good at, I guess, is I like to get in the wedding world information to everyone. Like I'm like, here's your timeline, here's your layout, here's the details. So I know I've done my job of everyone having the correct information. So in my mind, it leaves little room for conflict because I've provided what I needed to provide.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the first thing I do. I think also when it comes to wedding days, it's not as hard for me to be assertive on wedding days because I kind of, the energy's there. Like I'm already like, you know, I'm watching out for everything. So it's not as hard for me to say, hey, you had that contract. This is what we asked for. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, if you talk to people nicely, most people are relatable. So you don't have to yell, you don't have to say bad names, or, you know, anything like that. So as long as I can come to them and be like, hey, I got you this information. Unfortunately, you're not doing what we talked about, then it's okay. Also, at the end of the day, I work for my clients. So if they wouldn't be okay with a chair that shows up that's broken, I'm not either. So they're the ones that are paying my paycheck. So I'm there to represent them. So I kind of have to. So I just remind myself of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, it's nice. I feel like I just thought of a story of Madeline getting in a fight with someone over a wig, and we'll get into that another moment, but when you are doing something on behalf of people you care about,
right,
it's very it's
easier.
You're like, I got this, versus if you're like, hey, like, I want this for me, it's like it's so much easier to bring that forward whenever you have when you have like someone else's interest in mind, and remembering like, I got their back, I want to make sure they have like total peace of mind on this day. I love that.
You want vendors to care as much as I do. You know, you want everyone to be excited about the day as I am and as the bride is. And it's hard in Charleston because people do it day after day after
There's
day.
A lot.
You know, so it's like I'm kind of their advocate to be sure that they're getting the best or being taken care of in the best way.
I love that. And I feel like whenever I do consultations with clients as well, I say, you know, there's two kind of vendors you're probably going to run into. There's people that, you know, they're tried and true, they've been doing it forever, and they're either going to be like, oh, it's just another wedding, like whatever. It's like this jaded thing of like, oh, you know, here I am, I'm working, I'm on a Saturday. And then you have people where it's like, you've gone over like whatever your number is of like, I've been in the trenches, I know this industry, I know this town, and you still love it. Yeah. And you still are like, I live for this stuff. Like, I enjoy what we're doing. It's not just another wedding. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing that, like, you know, with my own team, whenever we show up, it's like always remembering, and like from a filming perspective, that it's like, I don't care if this is like our 200th wedding we've done. It's like for this couple,
it's their only
this
one.
is the first day this will ever happen for them. And to like celebrate each couple's unique mix of like their day and see it, like tap into that empathy of like getting in that energy. And like I love that you're like, you know, looking out for their interest in being an advocate, because it's like when you have a team of vendors like that, and especially if you can like vet for them, like if you know the key players, that it is like you're going to be in good hands. Like I know these people, I know their work, like I know the caliber of what you can expect. It's like you're truly operating as a team for that day versus like a bunch of, you know, subcontractors that are all just like marching to their own drum. Yeah, that's, I love it. Let's see. So, tell me about the squad. You have a really unique squad in your life, and I want to hear more.
Yeah. So, I think part of how I got on this podcast is maybe from Meredith with Sweetgrass Social. Yeah. So, kind of, I think where it started was I had my second child. I have, first and foremost, I have the most amazing friend group, like my other mom friends that are my friends for life. There's 5 of us. We text 18,000 times a day. But specifically being in the wedding field, like I was kind of struggling on like, I miss work, but like I love being at home with my baby. So I kind of needed some communication with some people that were doing that. So Meredith specifically, we started chatting on Snapchat. Like we literally didn't have each other's numbers. And then one day when we were like going insane, we were like, can we go meet for like a rosé lunch? And we took our babies that were like still in car seats and just had one glass. And so we went to lunch and we just like started talking, and that's kind of where it got kicked off. And then another friend of mine was moving back in town from Kansas City. And she, I think, you know, wanted to kind of connect with someone also in the wedding industry. Both of our kids are the exact same age. Another planner that's kind of in that group, her daughter and my daughter are in the same class. And then, so it's just kind of this like connection. And then the other person in the group also has another, a daughter on the way and has a son. So we all have kids that are like ages 5 and under, and then we're all business owners. So it's kind of cool to be able to connect with people like in the exact same situation as me, which is great.
Like to the T.
Yeah. So it's you know, we get to talk about like kids and potty training and, you know, all of that. But then on the flip side, I can be like, hey, so when you file for these taxes, like, what do you do? And they're able to like help me out and answer some of those questions and, you know, non-judgmental and like really kind of walk me through things, which has been amazing. So,
I mean, I feel like that's the way things were supposed to be, like back in the old day. You know, you're like that statement of it takes a village,
right? And
it's like, all right, so you know, maybe a lot of us have careers now, and like where's that camaraderie, right, of being like, oh, like what technique are you using for potty training, and like how can you help me rise like with understanding what to do and how to grow my business. That's like awesome. And how often do you guys do you get together physically? Yeah.
So usually I would say like once a month we try to get together, whether it's for dinner or whatever, and we sometimes even come with like bullet points to talk about. We're like you know, and then we'll text.
Well, and if y'all are all a bunch of planners, of course you're gonna come with like
someone's the secretary.
Oh my gosh, I love it. One of the things that you mentioned whenever we were doing our onboarding questions is that one of the biggest challenges that you've faced is launching your own business. And now I love this topic, and I'm a big advocate of like, you know, sharing what was that journey like, what were the things you weren't anticipating, and you know, tell me about that journey. So when I launched my business, I don't even know if I was exactly ready for it. It wasn't part of my plan. My plan was to stay at home with my son and my daughter, and a few months in, I went a little crazy. And I think that I'm proud of myself for being strong enough to realize that, you know, being strong enough to realize that I needed something else, and not that they weren't enough, but for me, you know, I just needed another outlet, a creative outlet, out of the house outlet, whatever it is. And not everyone needs that, and that's okay too. But I think, you know, my grandfather was a huge entrepreneur, and so it's always kind of been in my nature to do something like that. So I don't think it was anything that
people didn't expect, I guess. So yeah, but it was kind of a really quick thing. I was like, I'm gonna do it. And my husband was like, okay, cool. So are the kids going to daycare? Like, what are we doing? And I was like, I don't know yet. And then I realized the wait for daycare was 1.5 years. So, but
gosh.
thankfully we got in, a little bit earlier. So yeah, I think it's just, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to be a wedding planner. And I'm like, okay, like A, it's not that easy, but B, it's really not that easy being a business owner. Like that's really hard. And I am not that great at the taxes accounting portion of it. So learning all of that has been a lot. But I'm getting there day to day, and kind of talking about that compartmentalizing. I try to be like, okay, I work on business stuff when I'm at home. Like after the kids go to sleep, I'll open up my laptop and open up QuickBooks or, whatever, and figure that out for a couple hours. And then in the office, I work mostly on day-to-day wedding stuff. So
so it's like business management, like the big picture stuff you like to do at home, like
like
shift gears into that.
Updates or
on the business, and then in the office you're working in the business on day in day out. Nice. I like that. I like that. And what was something that, I mean, in terms of, because when I think about business, it's like, we have our like sales, prospecting, marketing piece, and then it's like the infrastructure scaling, and then it's like client reviews, like, that all of those elements. Is there any part of that stands out to you in your own journey of, did you learn something big that you weren't anticipating?
Oh, the Instagram piece is kind of hard. Like, I think I enjoy it. Like, it's exciting to me to kind of put together images and stuff, but it's hard. Like, every day to come up with something to write, it's like, it gets a little overwhelming. So that part I thought was going to be like the fun part, and now I'm like a little annoyed by it. But God, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, I need that list you just said. Like, I feel like I need to write all those things out.
The different areas.
But it's also kind of easy in the sense that it's just me. Like, I'm not trying to hire multiple employees, that kind of thing. Do I want to scale my business in the take less weddings, make more money? Absolutely. But like, I'm not trying to have 6 employees with me or anything like that one day. So no, that's so cool. And that's so funny that you mentioned like the social media piece, because like I think this morning before we got into recording, we were like, we did some recaps, because it's like, how do you stay relevant with content, right? And it's not just like, well, here's a nice picture, but it's like, what's the cool story about it? We've seen 20 bouquets, like tell me what was unique. And we're like trying to find those pieces. And so, we're recording behind the scenes sessions where we discuss like, here's what went into making this client's video collection. So we do almost like a recap of, this is what was awesome, here's what was challenging for us. We accidentally filmed in 4K for the whole wedding and it was like a 0.5 terabyte, whatever, and just sharing those pieces. And then when we think of the captions, we're like hashtag shrimp, like hashtag an emoji, and like call it a day. But it is like this. It's like, it's starting to feel like fall around here. I could say that 3 weeks in a row.
You're like, how about that? Hashtag pumpkin spice. It's like, where's the, it's a never ending thing in the sense of social media, because you forever have to stay relevant. You have to stay engaging. You have to show like, I'm doing stuff. Don't forget about me, being top of mind. Like, how can you pique interest? And then as you get into it of what are the algorithms behind it, and X amount of people have to like it. And then, it is like its own world in itself. And I know we just resort to doing terrible hashtags and just hoping it pans out. But no, that's so awesome with just like, getting a grip of like launching something and finding like that rhythm, it sounds like, that works for your lifestyle. Tell me about, so you have mentioned that, let's see. Ooh, Okay. Tell me, what is some of the best advice that you can give a couple, like, when they just, will you marry me? Yes. And then they're like, all right, now what? And they look at all of the options and all of the things of like, what the heck? How do we even start planning a wedding? What would you have to say to them?
I think Well, for me, like if they were one of my clients, I would say to just trust the process and trust your vendors. Because so often you can get caught up in the little things of like, oh, well, you sent me this person, but I found this person online. And I'm like, there might be a reason why I didn't send you that person. Like whether it is they did a bad job, they're out of your price range, or you know what I mean? So it's like kind of when you, and sometimes, yes, sometimes someone will be like, I found this photographer, they're in Illinois, whatever, you know, it ends up being totally fine, you know, because I can't do research on all 50 states and out of the country, you know, so it totally works out. But in general is just like trust the process, trust your vendors. And if you do, the day will run way more smoothly if you can just sit back and relax and watch it from like the bride's point of view versus like someone who was super involved in every step of planning. Yeah.
And it's like, enjoy your day.
Yeah.
Don't like micromanage your way into like, do you really have to have a finger in every pie? It's like that's why they're hiring you to be able to come in and just know that like it's taken care of. And I know, and I always, you know, I'll forever go back to this if it's like the DIY route or putting something on somebody's like mom or an aunt that's like, oh yeah, like she spearheads stuff, she does catering, what have you, but it's like, is that really fair to her for your family wedding day? Like, would you not want her to be able to just celebrate and take it all in with you rather than like for you? So yeah, it's a big shift. What is like, after you do a big wedding day or a wedding weekend, what's some of your favorite ways that you like to unwind?
Yeah. So every time I do a wedding, whether I'm home at like 2 a.m. or 10:30 p.m. or like whatever it is, I take a shower. I will take that back. I pour a glass of wine. Okay. Then I take a shower.
Red or white? Red or white?
Red.
Okay.
And then I sit on my couch and usually like scroll Instagram for 30 minutes.
The little scroll
sometimes put on TV, but I don't even need it. Just, you know, kind of look on Instagram. And at that point, I've probably been tagged in like 17 things. So I'm just like looking at, you know, kind of what happened that night. I drink my glass of wine, go to sleep. And then usually the next day, my husband lets me sleep in. So like, he'll get up with the kids at like 7, so I don't have to be up that early, and then I'll wake up at like 8. And recently we've been like going to Sullivan's and drinking at home team while the kids take a nap.
All right. We got some hooting in the audience over there. Home team action. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is like, tell me about a wedding that was either like unusual or it was like amazing or it was like it went really bad really fast. Like, what I always love like the behind the scenes stories. Is there any weddings that come to mind that are like, well, that happened? So
one wedding that I can think of where I guess like the weather is always like when people are like, what's the worst part of your job? The weather. Always the weather. And really up until like, I don't even look at it until the Wednesday before because I'm like, I don't trust that it's not going to change. When it's 51%, I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, you never know. So I had one wedding one time where it literally rained the second guest got there, and we had to like open cocktail hour and like get everyone drinking, and then the rain stopped for 10 minutes, rainbow appeared, and it was just like magic, you know. And I'm like, ugh. And like everyone was like, did you pay for that to happen? And I'm like, yes. So that's always like when the weather changes for the better, it's always, you know, amazing. Like last weekend I had a wedding on Friday and Saturday was the worst. So like little things like that, I think the weather, you know, if it turns out in my favor, that is for some reason what guests always come up to me and say. It's like, did you get this for them? Did you get the weather? I'm like, yep, I did.
So halftime like rain woman, half of it wedding planner.
But I would say usually like not very often do my clients ever even realize the fires that are put out, whether it's like a bridesmaid that's throwing up in the bathroom, the groom threw up in a bush, like, you know, those kind of things. Usually my clients never know that stuff happens. So I hold it pretty close.
That is like a sign, I think, of a great planner, that, you know, that it doesn't get to the person who it's like, you know, you want them to be relaxed and at ease. I know I have had, I think the worst, like, debacle of a behind-the-scenes thing that I can think of is, like, there was one, like, the groom it was such a train wreck of a day, but like the groom was like having one of his groomsmen like write out his like thoughtful vows like last minute, and then like one of them literally left their drugs apparently at like one of the places they were getting ready. So like one of the dudes went out to get them more drugs. Like literally it was like, oh, where's Johnny? And it was like, oh yeah, he's going to go score for us. I was like, what is happening? That wedding day got shut down early because there was people getting belligerent at the staff of the catering crew. It was, that was a...
Sounds like a wedding I don't want to be at.
That was a trip. That was one for the books. So no, it's like the goal is to make it seem seamless and flawless, and that you did provide those paid extra for the rainbows afterwards. No, that
like it looks 100% in their eyes. Like in my eyes, I can point out things that go wrong for every wedding for sure, but in their eyes, 100%.
That's so awesome. What do you feel like? How was your wedding day when you think back of like? What did you love about it?
Yeah, so I loved everything. Like looking back, so I say there's two things I regret. I regret that I didn't have a bagpiper at the end of the ceremony. My husband and I went to Presbyterian College, so it's like a big thing there.
Okay.
And then I regret not having a live event painter. So those are like the two things that I wish that I would have had. But other than that, it was perfect. I mean, I think the cool thing about being a wedding planner is like I secretly get to like do every version of a wedding I would want to do.
Yes.
So like I don't have any lingering feelings of, oh, I didn't have that.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, so my wedding was great. I got married in the heat of July at Lowndes Grove.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was great. Melissa at a Charleston Bride, my old boss, was my planner. She was awesome. Their team was great. Every vendor that I worked with was amazing. Videography, photography, like everything was great. Flowers were great. No regrets. It rained on the morning of, and then it cooled down. But I'm a big believer in A, don't pick your wedding date because of the weather and because you can't control it, and B, like just roll with it. You know, if it rains, it rains. Like don't worry about hiding rain in the photos. Like get an umbrella, get some rain boots. It'll be cute. That's what you'll remember. So
yeah, and I think one of our sweetest weddings this year was a rainy day ceremony. I mean, it was like they didn't get a tent and it was a beach wedding, so everyone looked like a drowned rat. Yeah. But they were like the drowned rat having the time of their life. Like, it, you know, it was just, there was so much emotion. And it was like, okay, if you're going to fuss and get yourself in a tizzy because you're so anxious about the weather being a certain condition versus like, if you come in with that mentality of like, yes, that would be great to like have my hair look perfect and immaculate, and regardless, I'm gonna be good. We're gonna be good. I'm marrying my best friend. I'm marrying, you know, the love of my life, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's like, I like that. Just roll with it. Yeah. Don't get yourself some cute like polka dot rain boots. Glitter. Glitzy girl. I'm trying to think. So you mentioned Lowndes Grove, and like we personally also love Lowndes Grove. Yeah. Give me your 2 cents on maybe an overlooked wedding venue or just someplace that that you love working.
Yeah. So I love Lowndes, obviously, because I got married there. I also live 2 blocks from there right now, so pretty convenient. But yeah, I think Lowndes gives like the best of everything. Like you're downtown, you're on the water, it's a plantation home, you know, so it kind of offers all of that. Another place, I guess in Charleston, another place that I like to work is Runnymede. Okay. You guys are shooting with me there in March. So it's really cool. It's also on the water. It's this huge blank space, which is what I love. Like I love transforming a space, and you know, you get married in one space, you go to cocktail hour and you're like, this is beautiful, and then you don't even realize that there's like a dance tent or a reception tent or whatever. So a place like that where it's kind of open field or something like that, I really enjoy.
Yeah. And speaking of like Runnymede, what are some of the really cool, unique things about that place? Like it's transformable, blank canvas, like what else is awesome about it?
Yeah. So they just added a bridal suite, so that's nice. Yes. There's like ruins there, which is really cool.
The chimney.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's a lot of different options. Like, so I feel like you can never really look up and see photos and be like, oh, that's where the ceremony is, because there's 7 ceremony ideas, you know,
Wow,
like you can really
cool.
change up how you want to do it, which I really like. And they have a tent built in there. So
Okay, cool.
it's, you know, kind of included with the venue if you want to use it. You don't have to, but it's got flooring and a tent, which is like awesome, which I think
is awesome.
kind of takes some of that thinking out of it from the client.
And the pressure too of if you're like, oh, do we have to, you know, it's just peace of mind. They have that
you
option
have
if
that
they want
option.
it.
Right.
Is it, what, do they have a sweet spot of the, like, for guest count wise? Like, is it better for bigger weddings, or is it versatile enough you can really...
Versatile, but it's definitely a big property.
Cool.
So like the wedding we're shooting in March is going to be like 250 guests.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part too about Charleston is there's not a ton of places that you can fit 300 plus people, you know? So I would say definitely larger guest count, but you could do smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Yeah, Runnymede. That's such a great, that's, you know, we're always thinking about what are the places, like, obviously there's places that are like heavily advertised. We all know, like, these are the places that you can get married in Charleston, but I love the, not that they're underdogs, but just they're overlooked places with big value adds.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of any other, if you have somebody that is planning a wedding and, okay, I love this question, okay? So between balancing family politics and between budget and then also like appeasing like whoever's helping fund the wedding and all those dynamics that can get really sticky, what advice do you have to a couple or to like the family unit of that? How do you like to help people like see the forest for the trees?
Right. I think, well, I always ask, like, after they book with me and in that first meeting, I'm like, who can make decisions? So is it you and the groom, or is it the groom's parents that are paying? Because so often it's not necessarily the bride's parents that are paying for the whole thing anymore. Yep. It's older people getting married, and by older I mean that they're established and they have some of their own money.
Yeah.
Or there's multiple people kind of putting in for things. So I always like to know, like, who can call me and make changes and decisions. I haven't had too many problems with it, that's for sure. So yeah, I think as long as we're on the same page of like who's allowed to make decisions, who's the person I communicate with.
Yeah.
If dad calls me, can dad change his mind if you've already made up your mind?
Who's got the veto power
exactly.
here?
Who's the veto? And you know, honestly, I tell them to communicate. Like, you know, it's like y'all need to communicate because this is your wedding, and like I can tell you all day what I would do.
Yeah.
But if dad wants a nicer bourbon and you don't care about the bourbon, who's paying? Who, you know, like y'all have got to kind of figure out that decision. So
yeah,
they have to take some responsibility.
I know. I feel like there's been so many, like, just hearing from the video side of it, because oftentimes video is either an afterthought or it's like, oh, well, one of my friends told me I needed this and I didn't think about it, but now I realize I want it. What can you do? And it's like there's all kinds of, it's challenging to go through that terrain with, you know, especially with like the in-laws element of it, where it's like, you know, I know like a bride might be used to approaching her parents and discussing financial matters, but then it's like, oh, here's my in-laws and I appreciate them, and now we're getting really like nitty gritty, and it's like getting clear on those priorities and just having those checks and balances.
And I always remind people of like, I'm like, these are the 3 things you told me that were most important, or you told me when we started you would rather have beer and wine if you could have draping. And so it's like, is that still the case? Or, you know, so just kind of always reminding them of those things. And when it comes to videography, I always tell people that was one of the favorite parts of my wedding. And I'm like, yes, we do still watch it. Funny enough, I got my video on a disc. And there's like nowhere to play discs anymore. And so like recently I was like, can I get that like online so it like will never go away? And they're like, absolutely. And they sent it to me. And I will say the best part now that we have kids is we showed our kids our wedding video for the first time recently. And to see our kids like light up like we're movie stars on the TV screen, I'm like, everyone needs a video. Everyone has to hire a videographer.
Your kids have to look at you the way they look at me.
Like I have a video of my daughter looking at me being like, Mommy's a princess. And I'm like, oh my God. That made it worth it. It made it worth it.
You're like, all of it. I'm going to do it all over. Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I know. I'm always looking for the aftermath from a video perspective. And like we do our survey every year where like I hit up all of our clients, and it's crazy because now everyone's got like 2 or 3 kids. Like, you know, we've got like 5-year-olds in the mix, and it's like, what? But like to hear we're like, how many times do you still watch your ceremony? How many times do you watch your highlight reel, and see which products continue to hold value? Because we're always innovating our packages and everything. But I love that your baby's like, oh my gosh, my mom's a princess. Oh, that is so cool. Well, to wrap this up, okay, so Haley, how can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you online? How do they do it?
Okay, so my email is Haley, HALEY, at Haley Kelly, KELLY, events.com. My Instagram is Haley Kelly Events. My Facebook is Haley Kelly Events. And my website is HaleyKellyEvents.com.
Branding on fleek. Yes. I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming and wrapping up this session of the Ruby Hour with me. And from a listener and viewer perspective, thank you so much for coming in. And you don't really come in here, you just listen to us and watch us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, tag a girlfriend that this information can be helpful with. I know that if you're in the middle of planning, or if you have a family member that's planning, what she's saying is straight gold. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.